with that, we go straight to our next topic, which is going to be a panel on the long-term impact on AI. So for that, I please welcome the panelists on stage and allow them all to introduce themselves. So please give a big round of applause for some of the leading AI experts from all over the world joining us here at Texavania. And I have to say, we have one more panelist joining us as a late addition in a few minutes. We're just, since we wrapped up a little bit early on that, we're still trying to grab him, but he should be momentarily with us. But first of all, I'd like to ask our panelists to give a quick 1-minute introduction to themselves, and then we'll kick it right off with the questions. So if you could start.
Yep, my name is Xuan Jin. I come from Alibaba Cloud. I'm serving as a solution architect as well as a senior evangelist for cloud business. Before I joined Alibaba Cloud, I have been working as a tech lead in Cisco and Oracle in software development as well as in the site reliability engineering for many years.
Fantastic.
Okay, Catalin, Golban. Seems that I'm the only local guy here, so I come from Bosch Engineering Center, Cluj. Here, at Bosch, I'm responsible for leading a team doing video processing for driver assistance and automated driving. So I'm very much into this artificial intelligence and data processing for automated driving.
Hi, I'm Micha Breakstone. I'm a founder of Chorus.ai and the chief scientist over there. My background is I have a PhD in cognitive sciences, formal semantics, and I've been doing natural language processing for the past 10 years or so. Was deeply involved in 2 previous exits. One was Sumly that was sold to Yahoo, and afterwards I founded a business unit that we sold to Intel. So kind of been in the space of AI, natural language processing, for probably 10 years plus.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. So let's kick off the questions on the long-term impact of AI. So you have showed some pretty impressive examples earlier what Alibaba is doing with like a city-scale AI. So what is your view on how AI is going to change like whole cities? What are the kind of things that you believe are possible? And I mean, because you showed a lot what's possible now, but what do you believe is possible in 5 to 10 years from now?
Yes. Alibaba has been a pioneer so far in terms of implementing smart city solutions. I think that partially thankful to the government support as well as the local people's support to have services enabled by AI. So the people has already been benefiting from multiple aspects, such as the traffic conditions, transportation, such as the social security improvement, and such as the healthcare. I think in the long run, those 3 fields will be the main impact areas for a smart city implementation. So in the improvement for the city transportation, you have already seen in my presentation previously that we have obviously using a city brain to have a better overview of the traffic level, and we can more intelligently redirect the traffic to the other side of the road if the road is congested, or we can have a green light for the emergency vehicles before the emergency vehicles was arriving at the junctions, so that it can potentially contribute to the save of life of the citizens. And from the aspect of the social security, also it was welcomed mostly by the cities that we can use artificial intelligence, video recognition, facial recognition technologies so that we can actually identify the threat even before the threat becomes a reality. So in the situation that currently happening throughout the world, not just Europe but also China, that aspect can be much more improved with a better AI engine in place. Lastly, I would like to talk about the healthcare, where, I don't know how many of you agree that when you waited, like, say, half an hour, 1 hour to see a doctor, and the doctor just spent 5 minutes with you asking questions, how do you feel, and then they just give you a prescription. I think this kind of medical expert systems should be in place and should be there to help the people to make the medical experiences much more smoother. And it is already, the technical ability is already there. It's just a matter of how we can roll this out. And yeah, I think that's the 3 areas that in the next 5-10 years, the city brain would contribute most to improve the livelihood of the general human being.
So what is the smartest city in the world? Just a very quick answer. What do you think is the smartest city right now in the world?
Definitely Hangzhou. I welcome everybody to the city of Hangzhou, where Alibaba is headquartered. you will be amazed, and you will see people using mobile phones to make payments. People are not carrying any cash in hands. All the, even the street food stores, like serving breakfast, they accept Alipay. So that's a truly amazing experience. So I welcome everybody to the city of Hangzhou and experience it.
Yes, I spend like 6 to 8 weeks every year in China, and I'm very impressed, but I haven't gone to Hangzhou yet. But I think the payment and the general application of services in China is just like through the roof, I agree. Okay, please welcome Professor Newton Howard on stage. So we had to grab him. He's one of the leading brain scientists. So thank you very much for being brave enough to still run on stage. We see we made him even sweat a little bit by coming here. But with that, I would like to ask you to give a quick 1-minute introduction about yourself, and then I'll straight after that ask you also another question.
Sure. I am Newton Howard. I'm a professor of neurocomputation and neurosurgery at the University of Oxford, and have founded a lab at MIT known as the Synthetic Intelligence Lab. I'm focused on brain implants, brain augmentation. Been working for the last year or so on actually translating some of that technology with a company that is a partnership with the university called an ITO. And we're making great success, and we'll maybe discuss some of that in a bit.
Yes, so what I'm very eager is, like, of course there's always this like horror scenarios about the killer AI who's like overtaking us all, and like general AI, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But what you're working on is to enhance the human, to make that we don't need to have a superhuman AI, but that we can have a superhuman human. So what is your perspective on what time frames are we looking at, and what is like possible?
Sure, so a lot of events that I go to and discussions around AI, they discuss some of these concepts that I'm about to talk about as something in the future. I think the future is now, and these things are actually beginning to show results. You have 2 movements in data world: the quantitative self, enormous amount of data about oneself from health, etc., and the people that are going into the augmented self. And the augmented self is influenced by the quantitative self. Now it's almost, they both collapsed. AI went to make a machine that is like a human, behaves like a human in every way, whatnot. And others went to create a human to become like a machine. I don't believe that you can actually have a machine like a human. So I'm of the camp that likes to augment and give the human capacity what is lost, so that you can compete with the machine. So we are more on the side of the restoration of human dignity and capabilities, including things like in disordered states and whatnot.
And anybody here would like to disagree with Newton? Now I want to have like pick a fight on the panel, but it seems like everybody's like, okay, I'll not mess with this man. Okay, that's fine. No, I mean, I think
maybe a personal opinion. I think this
good. Get at him.
So this general artificial intelligence is somehow far away for the present day, and what we call today artificial intelligence, especially in the computer science community, it's these deep learning methods which seems to give quite good results on working on real data, like classification, perception, and maybe a new paradigm or something more than we call today artificial intelligence would do this and later.
Right. Let's imagine a journey of about 1,000 years of examining where sense and sensation is being created. And to a philosopher like Plato, it was like, where is exactly this whole excitement coming from, right? So he blamed it on something called the soul. And the soul is in the gut, in the heart, and in the brain to him. And then later people disagreed, so they decided to prove it, to have to dissect and get to factual things. The seat of conscience, where faculty and capabilities are all in the brain. You agree? Today,
Yes.
You agree, okay. So, I mean, some people disagree. Sometimes we can say it's in the gut. It's possible. There's a lot of receptors there as well. The possibility for getting the behavior, the natural behavior of two neurons, not two neural networks, but two neurons in a naturalistic setting is close to none. Like, it's not possible. We can emulate, we can do all the things. So to me, to become like a human is to actually sense and to feel and to have emotion and sentiments and do a lot of sophisticated things. So true, when somebody looks at my work, I have sentiments, analysis and classification where I'm basically suggesting that we're almost like a machine. Like I give you an injection of oxytocin, you're all in love. And I give you another injection and you're no longer in love, right? And there's the mechanics behind it. That doesn't delineate that there's something unique about human, and machine learning will never come near it.
Okay, that's a very bold statement. That is great. So with that, I'd like to ask Micha, because we had like, at the preparation for this conference, I was like shooting Micha an intro with his like bio, and within like, and he's like working on conversational AI, and I think within like 1 or 2 minutes, I got a reply. And I said like, wow, I mean, either this product that he has is really amazing and I'm getting like a response by his conversational AI, or Micha is just a really fast email writer. So I said like, hey Micha, was this like you replying or an AI? And he said like, well, if I would have that AI, I would be like retired and I've sold the company for billions to like Alibaba or Google. So what is your perspective, because you're working on like the conversational AI part of it, what's your perspective when this part will be getting at human level? So we're not talking necessarily about general artificial intelligence, but just like a conversational AI that can be at a human level.
Yeah, so unfortunately I have to agree with my colleague here. I think, we've seen a huge transformation over the last 8 years in AI with the advent of indeed deep neural networks, which have obviously have been around way before, but with the processing power and the data sets available, we've seen some amazing stuff come up. One of the great luminaries of the field, Andrew Ng, calls AI the new electricity, basically. But still, when you actually look at the results today, my field is specifically language, and we're so far away from even the basic understanding of how language works with AI. We're able to emulate certain phenomena with huge amounts of tag data, usually, so we're dependent on huge amounts of tag data. Human beings are able to learn from, a few dozen examples, not a few million examples. And also, everything we learn is one modality. So everything that the computers learn are basically learned from tag data, which is one-dimensional. It's tagged over text, whereas language itself is so much more interactive and has to deal with interactions with the real world. So I also agree with you that we're in order to see true progress towards human level intelligence, we're going to need to see at least one or more two new transformations. There are specific verticals, specific tasks where we're getting to human level, like in transcription. So some people are saying that IBM and Microsoft every few months come up with a new a new statement that we've surpassed human capabilities in speech. We're not quite there. They kind of look at a tiny piece of a testing set that has been reviewed for the last 18 years, so there's a lot of overfitting and stuff like that, but we're getting quite close. I know in radiology, they say that being able to detect tumors is also quite close to the capabilities of radiologists, but actual non-very specific tasks are very elusive. I think we're missing something essential. Deep neural networks have done a lot, but essentially they're just better learning machines or better able to model things than linear models were able to do previously. They haven't brought a breakthrough or a change of paradigm in how we learn. So that's my perception.
So do you have a prediction of how many years we're still out? Because it was very generic, so I'm really curious, like on a more specific prediction, which is like very hard to do on stage because it always makes you foolish because you're 99% to get it wrong.
Yeah, well, no, I can say more than X years or less than Y years. Then I have 50% maybe, well, whatever, right? I think we're lacking a key component, so I don't know when that will be invented. I think we're going to see incremental increases. I think, Google came out with Google Duplex, which was amazing. You don't know how much they tweaked the demo or didn't, but it was an amazing exhibition of power. So I think we're going to see gradual changes in the next 5 to 10 years. I think 10 years from now, there will be a lot of tasks that will be able to be done like humans, but general command of language, I think we're looking for a paradigm shift, and it's very hard to predict. So, 20 years plus.
20 years plus, oh wow, yeah, that's very long. I hope it happens much sooner than that, but that's interesting. Anybody like to argue that 20 years? What's your take?
Probably even longer.
Even longer?
Probably even longer.
Okay. My panel all thinks it's very long out, and they all agree with each other. How boring. We need to start to get some fights going. Okay, but one thing that I really want to ask you, since you're the only local on the panel, and I really like the analogy and the metaphor that you said from Andre I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, that AI is a new electricity. I think that's a very powerful statement. So since you're local in the market of Cluj, how is Cluj doing with the electricity of the future?
Yeah, a very good question. So I think we are doing some very good progress, and now I can speak from Bosch perspective. We see some very good graduates coming from local universities who can work state-of-the-art technology, artificial intelligence in our field, so sensor data processing for video, radar, ultrasonic. So this is a really good science, and universities are flexible to adapt their curricula. Also, there are some very good research groups in universities, so we have good collaborations with them. This is growing, and with the hype, also students are more and more interested in the field, so quite a good progress here.
So do you think Cluj can be one of the leading cities in artificial intelligence software development? Because it has been grown a lot in regular software development, but do you think it can do the paradigm shift to AI and be one of the leading cities in that area of development for AI?
I think that the local software industry can transform towards that direction. So things like smart city could be very easily done here, or medical image processing in collaboration with domain-specific knowledge from a local medical ecosystem, automated driving, of course. So for sure, in the next couple of years, we would see some automated driving, automated cars running around in the city. So
yes. We're both working in that field, so it seems that Bosch is getting ahead of Telenav, but that's a separate discussion, so I'm very much looking forward to launching that. Newton.
You do quite a good work on the mapping, on precise mapping, which are really needed. So
yes, we can collaborate for sure. Anyway, Newton, you're setting up a team in Cluj as well, and you're becoming like a frequent all-star guest here. So before we go to other markets, I'd love to hear your take on Cluj and artificial intelligence as much as you can tell, because you've been many times in Cluj over the last years.
Last year, I made a sort of a calling to the audience for those who would actually be interested in brain augmentation and brain implants and see kind of like calling for an army. Interestingly, a number of people contacted me, and we've been growing on an average of about 2 developers per month for the last year. It's quite intriguing. I'm very pleased with the quality of knowledge and the curiosity of the people that I'm working with. And I would rank them next to the top people that I had at MIT.
Fantastic. So you're falling in love with the city, and the city is falling in love with you. So that's fantastic. Please give a round of applause for Newton for coming here and like supporting the local ecosystem. So one perspective when we speak about top AI talent. So one thing that I've seen lately, more than 50% of the AI papers are published in Chinese, which is like sometimes we often don't realize how powerful this is, right? Like if you're outside of China, sometimes you don't even have access to this vast level of knowledge. And what all the bats, like the equivalent like Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, are putting together in AI is fantastic. So, and since you're now European-based and you've seen like kind of both worlds, what is kind of like your perspective on the global areas of development? How is it like, is it going to be like really the area of software development where it's going to shift to China? Is it going to be distributed in many markets? How is it going to be like in AI in the future from your perspective?
Right, very broad question, but from my perspective, luckily I command both languages. So I can see the development of China in terms of science, in terms of research towards AI. And now AI is also made as a strategic project or strategic direction for the country at a country level. Not to mention that the BAT, the giants are promoting AI in its individual capabilities. So I think to make AI prosper, there are certain criteria to be met. One is the business scenario. So China is big enough, the business drive is big enough to find out all those scenarios that to create those demand from one single market. And two is a population. So fortunately, we have that population, and it's not going to go away in a short period of time to support this kind of business innovation. And the three is the kind of the data that created out of the business activities, which means you need to have the strong information infrastructure to support it. So now what I see is China ticks all the boxes to allow a rapid growth of AI, rapid development of AI and IoT. So that's why I do believe AI will be prosper in China. In Europe, obviously, it's a different landscape. The government realizing this AI capabilities is important. It needs the people to work on it, and it needs the companies to invest together and to drive the development of AI.
So that's a very big challenge. So I know that you need to make it happen in Cluj for sure, but I think it's a big challenge that we really make sure that in Europe we're not falling behind. With that, I'd like to switch to one of the very interesting recent developments in AI, that a lot of that is going to dedicated hardware. So we've seen one thing that we've seen that there's lately a lot of more talk that Moore's law is basically more or less dead, and that the kind of the final part of the running course. But OpenAI has published this amazing article where they show that AI right now, the power of the capability to train networks is growing at a much, much faster pace than Moore's law would even suggest. And we have a lot of hardware, Google has launched their cloud TPUs and a lot of hardware AI accelerators. So what is kind of your, if anybody wants to have a take on that, what is your take on the rapid innovation in AI? Are we going to see that in a few years, or is this going to taper off as well, or are we seeing the power in AI systems going to grow at the pace that it has been for the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so I'll take that. I'm not a hardware person, so I don't know the exact specifics of that, but the TPUs and the GPUs have been driven by obviously matrix and vector linear algebra calculations, which are the underlying components of deep neural networks, which above them, as you know, have activation functions, which are nonlinear. So improving, being able to parallelize backpropagation, obviously, as well, in the backward computational graph. So because you know, it's only been about 8 years since these things have come to the forefront, there's huge space for improvement, and that's what we're seeing now with dedicated hardware. I assume that will continue for a good few years, just because it's just the beginning of exploration of how to optimize for those computations. But after that, again, there's just so far you can go in optimizing for a specific, for something so specific. So once we're able to get the most we can out of architectural optimizations, that will also reach a plateau, probably.
Okay, that's okay.
Maybe I can add something here. So I think that increasing data, if you look at automated driving, where we get data from more and more sensors, so the need to process this data in parallel would also trigger the improvements in the hardware processing. And on the other side, if you look at the automotive business, if we want to scale this automated driving level 3, which industry is working on currently, we need dedicated hardware embedded, low power, who runs in the car for 10, 20, 30 years maybe, and stays there no matter the conditions, temperature and so on. So the dedicated hardware for inference on the edge in the car for smart city also. So this is also a big business around, not only the scientific method behind, but also the processing and the inference in real scenarios.
Okay. With that, I'd like to have a very brief closing statement from each of you, and I would like to have the following thing. What is the wildest prediction you have for AI being possible in the year 2025? So what is the most controversial thing that you think in the year 2025 that people, I mean, not controversial as saying that it's like the technology is controversial, but let's say like a wild prediction would be like in 2025 you would have general AI, right? So I think like from what I heard on this panel, I don't think anybody would make that statement here. But what is like kind of like the most, when you look at the current perspective, the most advanced application of AI going to be by 2025? So just a very quick statement. I'd like to have a closing statement go around. So just like 30 seconds. What do you think 2025 is the wildest application? And sorry for putting you on the spot to go first.
You're really putting us to the corner now. Personally, I can see smart medical care will be prosper, will be popular by the year of the 2025, you know, in the near short term. That will be one thing, if any, will be successful.
Okay, great.
I was thinking what to say and to not promise too much, so then I will promise, but as a personal opinion.
It's not Bosch related.
Not Bosch related, so maybe automated shuttle bus traveling on a Roylor Street and coming back on 21st December Street, driving completely automatically in 2025. So.
Okay, I think there would be a lot of takers in the audience. And ideally, if you make it free, then it's great. If you make it financed by advertisement, I'll go for that.
That depends on the city hall. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to make a prediction that I can actually promise, because we're working on it at Chorus, so it has to do with conversational intelligence. I believe by 2025, and actually way before, we'll be able to have a computer listen into conversation and empower human beings that are having the conversation to have a better conversation, to suggest possible next statements, possible better questions, possible information to help augment and empower and enhance conversations.
I'd like to think, and I do believe that that year we would probably have a brain-computer interface that enables you to interface without peripherals, essentially from a query to information directly into your projection center in your brain.
Okay, thank you. I'll take all of those. Thank you very much. Please give a big round of applause to our AI panel.